Yesterday's national protests have achieved its objective, or their objectives. Thousands of marchers affiliated to trade union federations COSATU as well as SAFTU took to the streets in a shutdown yesterday. They were calling on government to act against the rising cost of living, high unemployment and poor wages. Let's discuss this further now. We're joined by Giwusa President Mametlwe Sebei, who joins us now virtually. Thank you very much, Mr. Sebei, for your time here on eNCA. Firstly, you say that this was a successful national shutdown or march. Why do you say that? What did you measure it with? Is it because of the numbers, the turnout?
Yes, I mean, recall that this was primarily an national stay away. And if you look at the situation in all the major cities across the country, in Johannesburg, where I stay, I mean, you know, in major highways where during peak hours, normally you can only drive below 20 kilometers an hour. You could actually drive up to the maximum speed allowed of 120 per kilometer during a peak of peak hours. I mean, that was at, 7:30 to 8, a time that normally we wouldn't do. And I think that speaks to the fact that millions of workers have stayed at home. But also, if you look at the turnouts in number of areas, as SAFTU itself emphasized, that we are not looking for big numbers given the fact that trains were not working and others. We actually expected 2,000. My estimation is that over 10,000 to 15,000 workers turned out yesterday in Pretoria. And that was, of course, preceded by hundreds that marched and even had, night vigil and night before from the 23rd to 24th. That, to me, speaks to enthusiasm, speaks to commitment, but I think also the fact that South African, workers in their great majority heed the call, and I think that's because they understand the justice of our cause.
And of course, some of them were told that, by not coming to work, there would be a no work, no pay policy that would be implemented. But wouldn't you also measure success on whether or not government is able to meet the demands that you made in your memorandum within 14 working days?
I mean, whether government, is going to meet our demands or not, obviously that will depend on whether the message yesterday was enough, whether we've made enough impact. But I think ourselves never had illusions that one day of shutdown would raise the message with government. We have submitted a memorandum. We're expecting them to respond, but also we are not sitting idle. We would be having discussions with, our formations in SAFTU, and I hope the same will be happening in COSATU, but also with working class formations, in communities, young people, people that, are in the taxi industry, all of that, to say we need to step up the efforts. We need to say, how do we intensify, how do we escalate, particularly if government does not respond. We need to do that up until the time that government act in terms of regulation of prices. We need to force prices of basic goods, energy, but also transport down. And there are things that we've proposed as our demands. We are saying that government can be able to put price regulations. We are saying that they can be able to tax big business that are profiteering from this, from the crisis in the energy sector, speculation because of the war in Ukraine and all of that, to subsidize public transport. We are saying that they should revive, they should revive the trains. The fact that trains are not working between Johannesburg and Pretoria and Cape Town, that is criminal. And I was saying that more than that, we need a plan on the basic income grant and many other things. If we are not making headways on that, of course, we are going to be announcing steps and plans for rolling mass actions in days and weeks to come.
And, when it comes to the fact that you were joined by, members of the tripartite alliance who are representing these alliance partners in the form of taking up positions in government, that, of course, brings the question on government protesting against government. And I know that there's been ANC members who are saying, no, it's the ANC, SACP, COSATU and affiliates, protesting against government, not necessarily itself. And it's about, the people that they've put there. And, of course, these are people that, the unions themselves have put there. So, how is this going to affect anything in terms of accountability when it comes to the tripartite alliance?
The position of the general industries focused on South Africa and of SAFTU is very clear. Firstly, Giwusa itself came out of COSATU in the early 2000s over the issue of alliance. And we made it very clear that the alliance with the ANC is an alliance with a pro-capitalist and a brutal anti-working class government that cannot be justified. And it was for that reason that we set out, we split from COSATU at that time. And when majority of unions split from COSATU, together with them, we formed SAFTU, and we are calling, as we have been doing, on COSATU to break from the alliance. We are discussing the issue of an independent mass political party of the working class, of rebuilding the mass movements of the working class in communities, in workplaces, and coordinating all of this into a movement that can put the working class in power economically and politically to ensure that we have society that can run in the interest of majority, not for those few that are profiteering out of cooperations that dominate our economy and industries.
And I mean, the concern obviously is that it looks a bit flawed to the workers who, for instance, were told by their employers that they would not get paid for not pitching to work yesterday, only to be in the same atmosphere as some leaders of your COSATU and SACP who were even campaigning with the same ANC last year.
We objected to that. You would have seen that, there were issues in terms of coordination of the program. SAFTU did object to the fact that ANC should be forming part of that program. Of course, there were two programs, and I think, ANC did address COSATU rally before we had a joint program shortly after, where we submitted, and that program was addressed only by COSATU, leadership, and of course SAFTU leadership and supporting organizations from communities and others that were part of the shutdown. Our position is that ANC cannot be marching against itself. Our position is that it's an absolute mockery of the working class in this country that you could be marching against ANC government with ANC supporting yourself. And that is an indictment on the comrades of COSATU. That is an indictment on the policy of a tripartite alliance. And of course, we are committed to a working class unity, and we'll do everything that we can within our means, but also within the framework of our principles that, we maintain the working class unity, because when the working class is united, we can achieve a lot of things, including the demand that we want to end unemployment, to end, the rising cost of living, and all these other crises that are impacting the quality of life of the working class people. That being said, we are, of course, going to be talking to COSATU, and we hope that we could coordinate better. We hope that we could come to an agreement and factor in the views and concerns that many working class communities are having, but also our own members are saying, how do you then have ANC pitching up in demonstration like this when this crisis is caused by the policy, the neoliberal policies of the ANC government?
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for speaking to us. It would be very historic if COSATU would adhere to what Giwusa President Mametlwe Sebei is telling us here on eNCA, saying that they have been asking COSATU to exit the tripartite alliance. But we do know that the ANC, COSATU and the SACP do sort of help each other out when it comes to positions, etc., in the tripartite alliance. Still to come on all angles. We've got more news for you here on eNCA. Do stay tuned.